Don't you know what you have done? Realize that you're taking someone's possession. You're taking lives and causing so much pain to others. For your hurt, they're not to blame. I can understand you call yourself a man with a gun in your hand, killing people in the land.
How's it going, everybody? This is Sultan Productions. Today we're going to be talking about a very old and notorious barrio found within the city of Santa Ana. For those that don't know, Delhi Los Aces is a very notorious, dangerous, and deadly neighborhood. You must tread lightly when you walk through this neighborhood, right? You got to show them their respect. They go a long way back. This neighborhood, if you grew up in the city of Santa Ana, more than likely you knew about them, you heard about them, or maybe even had a homie from there, you know? First off, before I start and continue this video, I want to say much respect to this neighborhood. I'm only speaking about your neighborhood through public knowledge, things that people can find online. So let's get to it. So the Delhi neighborhood was one of the few places where Mexicans were allowed to buy land. And according to the 1920 census, there were 500 residents in the neighborhood at that time. 100 Mexican homeowners and their properties were valued at about $25. In 1925, Delhi neighborhood schools were incorporated into the Santa Ana Unified School District, which built Edison Elementary School in 1929. The same year, residents voted to join Santa Ana's municipality. This was a contentious decision, with 17 residents voting in favor and 10 voting against the incorporation. The Delhi neighborhood increased from the 1930s to the 1950s, and the local Catholic church, Our Lady of Guadalupe, was built in the 1940s church. Activities played a significant role in the life of the neighborhood. In 1950, the neighborhood had its grocery store and a gasoline station, and a second school was built. In 1969, the Delhi Center was incorporated as a nonprofit organization by residents, the local Catholic Church, and the Junior League of Newport Beach. The National Army donated 2 World War II era Quonset huts, and the Manuel Esqueda family donated the land on the corner of Center and Holiday. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, signs of community distress and social displacement were evidenced by the 1990 census. The area was home to very young households with high unemployment rates and low educational achievement levels. Gang involvement and crime increased, and the neighborhood acquired a negative image, resulting in older families moving to other cities. These conditions triggered renewed efforts by various social groups to improve the neighborhood. During this time, community leaders pressed the city of Santa Ana to expand Delhi Park and construct a new community center. So for any gang member watching my video, man, I really want to know, what is it that made you guys want to gangbang? You know, what was it that made you go through that route where you have a promising neighborhood in the uprise, and then for some reason it just declined, you know? Leave it in the comment section. So Jaime Prieto Rocha, 42, pleaded guilty Friday to voluntary manslaughter. He also admitted a sentencing enhancement for a gang activity, and a murder charge was left open. Rocha was ordered to return to court October 30th for a pretrial and sentencing hearing, according to the OC Register. He is expected to be sentenced to 16 years in prison for the manslaughter conviction. A co-defendant, Irvin Teles, 27, a Garden Grove resident, will begin soon. His case is expected to be assigned to a judge on Tuesday. He is also charged with a felony murder, but also attempted murder with sentencing enhancements for the personal discharge of a firearm causing death, personal discharge of a firearm causing great bodily injury, and great bodily injury. He faces up to 75 years to life in prison if found guilty. Rocha, a friend of Teles, and Nancy Hamor, 28, a known drug dealer in Santa Ana, drove them into a Santa Ana neighborhood after midnight on September 2. When they pulled up to a curb where a 31-year-old woman, identified only as Elizabeth G., was waiting for a friend to pick her up. They were on Cedar Street in Santa Ana, an area claimed by the Delhi gang, of which police say Rocha and Teles are both members. Elizabeth G. later mentioned to investigators that she used to live in the neighborhood claimed by another gang, the Alley Boys. Teles had a conversation with Elizabeth G. and then pulled his weapon out and shot her in the face. According to prosecutors who say Rocha then drove them away, the woman survived her gunshot wound. However, she has impairments in her cognitive abilities, motor skills, and ability to communicate. Hamor then allegedly became hysterical and Teles shot her in the face, causing her to slump onto the back floorboards. After telling her to shut up, Teles said, "Just die, Nancy, just die," and fired again, killing her according to the OCDA. The men considered burning Hamor's body, but instead left it near the Newport Bay Bridge off Coast Highway. Rocha then drove the rental car in which Hamor was killed to Mexico, where then he got into a car accident. He then returned to the U.S. to obtain another vehicle. The police traced the rental car's license plate back to the rental car company that owned it. The car rental employees told detectives that the car had broken down in Oceanside and Rocha was in it. The police then drove to Oceanside and arrested him. The arrest of Teles was announced in late September, at which time authorities claimed he and Rocha are members of a Santa Ana street gang. Teles goes by Little Speedy and has convictions dating back to 2006 for such crimes as car theft and drug possession, according to investigators, who added Rocha's nickname is Slimmer. Orange County jail records have Rocha's occupation listed as forklift driver. Teles was also charged with shooting a man in the leg in August 11, 2013, in Garden Grove after an argument. A Garden Grove police gang detective testified that Teles argued with members of a Garden Grove gang, Hard Times, after one of them asked where he was from. Hamor was indicted by a federal grand jury in the local, state, and federal crackdown on Mexican mafia gangs in Orange County that was titled Operation Smoking Aces. Her dead body was found under the Bay Bridge in Newport Beach on Labor Day in 2013. Several weeks later, after the shooting, federal prosecutors accused Hamor of selling methamphetamine to an informant in 2012. The killing does not appear to be related to the drug charges. She had a history of drug addiction, but had been trying to get her life on track, and she was supposed to go apartment hunting the day after, according to her sister. You know, it's very sad to think that obviously not everybody's born a killer, right? Not everybody has it in them to commit a murder, right? So after her homeboy committed the murder, the girl turns hysterical in the car and he ends up shooting her too. You know, maybe he was afraid she might snitch later on down the line, right? It's a very treacherous game. Then again, it's a game we shouldn't put our feet into, right? So on December 25th, 2005, between 9 and 10 p.m., Enrique Gonzalez was washing his car in the alley of a residential neighborhood in Santa Ana. The alley was claimed by the Alley Boys criminal street gang. Juan Flores, Gonzalez's friend and a member of the Alley Boys gang, was in a nearby garage, which Flores apparently used for drug trafficking. As Gonzalez vacuumed the inside of his car, he noticed two other cars enter the alley at full speed. Gonzalez thought the cars might be undercover police officers, so he continued vacuuming the inside of his car. However, when Gonzalez stood up, he saw two individuals standing 8 to 10 feet behind him near the back of his car. He described the person that stood the closest to him as a young 15 or 16-year-old male, short in stature, with light brown skin, and wearing a hooded sweater. He described the second person as an older man, perhaps 28 years old, standing approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall, and wearing a beanie and a dark black sweater. He later identified Avelar as the older, taller individual, although Avelar reportedly stands 6 feet 2 inches tall. At trial, Gonzalez testified the younger man was holding a double-barreled shotgun and Avelar was holding a semi-automatic handgun when he first noticed them. He said the younger man asked him where he was from. Gonzalez, who disclaimed current membership in the Alley Boys gang, so technically he ranked it, right, said he was from nowhere. Avelar said Delhi. Gonzalez knew that Delhi was a criminal street gang and the Alley Boys gang were rivals. Gonzalez told the two men that he was just washing his car, but Avelar said Delhi. The younger man repeated the word Delhi, and Gonzalez responded, "All right." At this point, Gonzalez thought that the younger man appeared scared and not sure of what he was doing, and that it seemed he was waiting for Avelar to do something. Eventually, the two men got back into their cars and drove off. According to Gonzalez, the incident lasted 10 to 15 minutes. After they drove away, Gonzalez went inside Flores' garage and told him what happened. Within minutes, Gonzalez noticed that the same two individuals were standing at the other end of the alley, which was about 100 feet away from him. Gonzalez testified that he heard several shotgun blasts, followed by a series of shots from a handgun. He walked up to the scene of the shooting and saw Pedro Terán, an Alley Boys gang member, on the ground and bleeding beside a dumpster. Terán was being held by a girl, and she kept trying to get Terán to come back. However, Gonzalez testified he could tell Terán was dead. An autopsy revealed that Terán died from multiple gunshot wounds. A search of the crime scene produced 13 9mm shell casings, part of a shotgun shell, 3 bullets, and 2 shotgun pellets that were embedded in a fence. Gonzalez left the scene before police arrived. When he did speak to police officers the following March, he told them that he did not want to get involved and feared for his safety. Police officers initially contacted Gonzalez at his work and showed him a photographic lineup. He selected Avelar's photograph from this lineup, although at trial he admitted there was some uncertainty in his mind whether the suspect was one of the 6 people in the lineup. Police officer David Rondeau testified that Gonzalez focused on Avelar's photo, which was located on the bottom right portion of the 6-pack lineup. While he looked back and forth looking at the 6 photos, Rondeau told Gonzalez, "You keep going back to one," referring to Avelar's photo, and Gonzalez responded that Avelar looked familiar. Gonzalez complained that the shooter was wearing a hat and a beanie on the night of the incident. Rondeau then placed his finger across the top of Avelar's photo, and Gonzalez said, It's hard for me to tell if you just put your thumb there." However, at the end of the interview, one of the officers handed Gonzalez the lineup card and asked him to circle the photo of the person involved in the shooting. Gonzalez circled Avelar's photograph and initialed the card. Avelar has multiple gang tattoos, including Delhi gang tattoos, and an expert testified he was an active participant of the Delhi gang. His former girlfriend, Amber Holdman, testified that she and Avelar were in a relationship on the night of the incident, and she testified that he did not return home until 2 or 3 a.m. the night of the shooting. Avelar told Holdman he had gone to the cemetery, but afterwards he said that something had happened in the Alley Boys' claimed territory. He denied shooting anybody, but later showed her a newspaper story about the instant crime and said that was the incident he had mentioned earlier. He also asked Holdman to cover for him and told her that if the police came to the house, she was to say they had been together that night. Avelar called his mother, Rosaura Valverde, to testify on his behalf. She was convinced of her son's innocence, but also revealed that Avelar was on parole the night of the murder and that the police had come to her home to question him about a murder something during January or February of 2006. One thing we need to keep in mind is that loyalty doesn't really exist anymore. It's really hard to find loyalty. It's hard to find friends nowadays, real, true friends, right? That's why you got to keep your circle small. You got to have a certain few good individuals that you really trust, A lot of the times, you can't put your trust on a female, right? Especially if that female is one that you're not really connected to personally, right? Maybe you don't have kids with her. Maybe she's just a hood rat. At the end of the day, we need to keep certain informations to ourselves and tread lightly, You could be outside of your home chilling, thinking nothing's gonna happen, and your enemies could roll up on you. Stay aware of your surroundings. You know, if you guys are U.S. citizens and you guys don't have a criminal record, you guys have the right to bear arms, right? You have the right to have a weapon on you to protect yourself, you know? But a lot of the times when homies are young, they end up doing crime, end up getting busted, end up having criminal records. Now you can't have a personal weapon, a legal personal weapon on you. You know, you gotta have an illegal one, which either you're gonna end up getting busted, you're gonna end up getting killed. You know, it's a very treacherous game. We need to stay out of it. Let's play it smart. Stay out of the bullshit. You know, if you have a clean criminal record, go get your licensed firearm. You know, so you can protect yourself and your family. So, Moriel is a former member of a notorious street gang who testified that he would go out and hunt for his victims. He has been incarcerated for more than a decade, facing life in prison for charges that include attempted murder and a carjacking. But Moriel will not be spending the rest of his life behind bars. In fact, he'll be a free man in less than 4 years. That's because Moriel is a prolific jailhouse informant, a player in Orange County's notorious jail informant scandal, who has helped federal and local law enforcement on their cases. After more than 80 delays of his case, Moriel on Friday received a sweetheart deal from the Orange County District Attorney's Office. Superior Court Judge Patrick Donahue sentenced him to a total of 17 years for attempted murder. With the time he has already served, that leaves Moriel facing just about 3.5 more years behind bars. The Witness Protection Program will get him a new identity come 2021, and he will be a free man once again. Moriel has committed very serious crimes, United States Attorney Joseph McNally said in court Friday. But McNally added that the informant's work was critical to the government's gang crackdown in Orange County. Assistant District Attorney James Laird, the prosecutor for Moriel's case, called the informant instrumental. Even if you're a serial killer, and even if you're caught on tape admitting that the quality of your testimony is based upon what you get in return, there's room for you to work as an informant for the OCDA, Assistant Public Defender Scott Sanders. Moriel was a high-ranking member of Orange County's Delhi gang, a long-standing street gang in the county that also serves as a subsidiary of the Mexican Mafia. But by 2009, he was sitting in a jail cell in Orange County awaiting trial for trying to murder a man in Santa Ana 4 years earlier. He had committed a carjacking at knife point the year before. As a candidate for California's three strikes law, Moriel was facing 25 years to life in prison and was in need of some options. So in February 2009, Moriel requested a meeting with Santa Ana police detectives Charles Flynn and David Rondeau. He told them he was ready to turn snitch and help the cops solve some of their cases. If an inmate decides to snitch on his jail neighbors, the perks can be life-changing. Money, food delivery, video games, or as in Moriel's case, an eventual reduced sentence and freedom. I might be able to help you if my memory can fall back in place, Moriel told Flynn during a recorded interview. It might not be able to fall back in place because it's a long time ago. People forget. If I can grab spots of my memory and make it seem like it was yesterday. He just needed a little help to jog his memory. Some options would be nice, Moriel said. Right now I'm in a place with no options. I'm looking at third strike. I'm looking at life in prison. So the more options I have to work with and to choose from, the better position I'll be to think more clearly. And thus began a working relationship between Moriel and county cops and prosecutors. Moriel initially shared information regarding a local homicide case that had gone cold. By July 2009, he had signed an informant agreement with local law enforcement to work with them in secret, gathering evidence from within jail that might help their cases. During that July meeting, police engaged in a disturbing conversation with Moriel. one of what would become many. They discussed a potential future military career for the informant that would allow him to kill people legally. Orange County Sheriff's deputies Ben Garcia and Bill Grover, two men who would later emerge at the center of the county's snitch scandal for giving false testimony about their work with informants, accompanied Flynn, who did most of the talking. Listen to the audio of Moriel's interaction with local law enforcement, which HuffPost obtained and reported on in 2015. Have you heard, or do you think it's possible after all this is done, I can go into the military? Moriel asked the detectives. Flynn acknowledged that it was a real possibility. You want to kill people? You want to legally kill some people, huh? Grover said. Yeah, I want to go fight, Moriel responded. If that's possible, I want to go. Flynn replied, It's much nicer when Uncle Sam's behind you on it, then you know you can get away with it. That's cool, Moriel said. At the time of those conversations, the participants had no reason to believe their words would ever be heard again, and Flynn suggested as much to Moriel during one of their meetings. Let me tell you this right now, Flynn said. As they discussed an informant agreement that Moriel was considering signing, this goes in a file that I have for you that gets locked in a safe, but no one but I have access to it, and it never ever comes out. This goes in my file in my safe at the police station, and no one has access to it. Moriel spent the next 4.5 years serving as a key informant for the cops and prosecutors. He testified in 2 high-profile murder trials, as well as in the first trial in the wake of a sweeping federal Mexican mafia crackdown in Orange County. He first received money, and in 2011, witness protection. Neither the OCDA nor the Santa Ana Police Department immediately responded to a request for comment. In a press release, OCDA said the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office requested lenience for Moriel as a result of his ongoing cooperation and assistance in identifying multiple criminal street gang members affiliated with the Mexican Mafia. OCDA also said the office gave great deference to the federal agency's request. As for Moriel's own admission that he participated in the murders of other people, Large said law enforcement has exhausted all efforts to find his victims. Those crimes remain unsolved. Details of the county's jailhouse snitch program were mostly unknown in 2009. These recordings and others remained hidden until Assistant Public Defender Scott Sanders uncovered them. What a message this sort of deal sends, Sanders told HuffPost. Even if you're a serial killer and even if you're caught on tape admitting that the quality of your testimony is based upon what you get in return, there's room for you to work as an informant for the OCDA. There's an unbelievable Christmas present waiting. In a blistering 505-page motion filed in 2014, Sanders argued that hundreds of pages of notes written by Moriel and another informant, Fernando Perez, demonstrated the existence of an illegal jailhouse snitch program for the program sheriff's deputies alleged planted informants next to targeted inmates and directed them to fish around for incriminating evidence. Sanders argues that prosecutors would then present in court the damning evidence gleaned by the informants while holding other information that could have been beneficial to defendants, a violation of the right to due process. Additional damning evidence of the informant program came to light over years that followed Sanders' efforts, ultimately revealed a disturbing trove of long-hidden records of 25-year-old computerized system that detailed critical information about jail inmates and informants. More than 4 years' worth of logs created by deputies who managed the informants, which were ended days before a judge issued an order requiring their disclosure in 2013. And internal sheriff's department memos, including one boasting of hundreds of informants. Altogether, the records detailed a robust and well-established practice of cultivating and utilizing jailhouse informants against unsuspecting defendants. So it's crazy, right? Think about it like this, man. If you're a youngster, right? Let's say you're 15, you get busted for a murder, right? You put in work for the gang, right? You had a older head behind your ear telling you what to do, right? Then let's say you do juvenile life, maybe you come out by the time you're 25. That older head, maybe at the time when you got busted, right? Maybe it was 30 years old. Now you're 25, 10 years down the line, now he's 40. Now let's say you guys are doing crimes together. And, you know, 20, let's say you get out of jail at 25. You get busted at 30 years, Maybe you're going to get 20 years to life, right? Maybe in 20 or 15 years you might get parole. So you're by the math, you're going to be like, "Oh, you know what? I might be able to get out by like 45. That's not that bad." But your older homeboy, he's already 4 years old, 45 years old. And to him, 20 years to life don't seem that much of a good idea, right? He's going to snitch you out. He's going to snitch you out if he has something to come out to. You got to peep game, right? You got to see who has things to lose. If someone has kids to lose, grandkids to lose, maybe a wife to lose, he's going to think about snitching on you. But if you're rolling with someone that has nothing to lose, he lives on the street, or he's running amok, he's just doing drugs, he's up to no good, he has nothing to lose. Of course, he's going to want to, play around with his life. He's not going to care about his life. But on the other hand, you have something to lose. You have your moms. You have your pops. Maybe you have some kids. Maybe you have a niece, right? There's important things you could lose behind the crime, right? Behind the, you do the crime, you do the time, right? There's a lot of things you could lose as a young man. Your future, potential, the potential to have a family, the potential to get a career, right? Get the car you want, get the kind of life you want. I know when you're young, you might think that you want to have a good time, gangbang, and do your thing, right? But at the end of the day, every dog has a day, and you don't want to be the one with the shorter stick, right? You don't want to be the one with the bad deal at the end of the day, trying to prove you're a man when you don't have to prove it to nobody. So with that being said, man, I hope you guys understand that this gangbang shit is played out already. It has no place for our people, We shouldn't keep going with this violence, with this hatred, with this division, right? As a people, we need to come together culturally, because we're all fighting amongst each other. We're all brothers, man. And there's a bigger force out there trying to kill us all. So with that being said, I'm going to end that video. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to my channel. If you don't, I ain't tripping. Have a good night.